So I'm going to punch this up on the switcher here, and we're going to punch up ME1. This is what we want to create. I've got a moving, looping background. I've got a nice computer graphic frame, and I've got two pictures inside here. Now I'm going to tell you up front that the graphic frame has this text as part of it, so we're kind of cheating on that a little bit. Also, please note that I'm using stills inside of this box. Normally it would be motion video, but I'm going to build this thing from scratch, and it's probably going to be less distracting if I use still video as opposed to moving video. So to make things go quick, I'm going to recall a snapshot that's going to clear everything out completely to scratch. So first, let's go up to the menu. I'm going to select my top menu here and go to Frame Memory. Now, frame memory is a standard feature inside the MVS 3000 and 6500 series. It's a still playback system and a clip playback system. It has about 34 seconds of clip animation at 1080i, and it has 8 output channels which can be looped and have different things running in all at the same time. And we're going to use that for most of what you're going to see on the screen. So we're into the frame memory system now. First and foremost, I need to recall our double boxes. The way that the frame memory menu is laid out is I've got 4 distinct pairs. So pair 1 and 2, pair 3 and 4, 5 and 6, 7 and 8. Now these can be run independently or they can be run as pairs. So in this case, frame memory 5 and 6, I want to recall a pair. Now over on the left-hand side, I'm going to choose whether I want to recall a still or a clip. And up on the top, I have made folders so I can organize my stuff a little bit better so it's not all in one place. So in frame memory 5 and 6, I'm going to recall my 2 box. So now I've got this. Frame memory 5 has this graphic outline, and frame memory 6 is its key signal, which we had talked about earlier. Now in frame memory 7, I want to recall the looping background that we're going to use. So I'm going to turn pair off because it does not have a key signal. I'm going to select clip, go into recall the clip. And again, I put my stuff in folders, so I'm going to select background, and there's what I want. I'm going to recall that, and we can see that it came up, but it came up as a still. Down on the bottom, I'm going to select play. So this allows me to do something with the clip that I just loaded. And you can see up here on this graphic, it says my clip name is background. It's in frame memory 7, and it's 2 seconds long. Well, I know it's a looping background, so I'm going to turn on loop, and I'm going to hit play to start that loop going. Finally, I'm going to come up to frame memory 3 and 4, and I'm going to get the pictures of my kids. So in frame memory 3, I'm going to select still, recall, and I happen to know that my kids are living in the stills folder. I'm going to come on down here, and in frame memory 3, when I'm not doing a pair, by the way, I can select it this way by turning pair off, and I can select which channel I want to put it into. So in frame memory 3, I'm going to select my son Zachary, and in frame memory 4, I'm going to select the pictures of my 2 older kids with our new puppy. Okay, so we've got most of our elements all set up and ready to go. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to punch up ME1, and ME1 has frame memory 7 as the background on the A bus, and I'm going to turn a key on. Well, my key just went to black because in key 1 I have black. So let's go ahead and key frame memory 3. Now, yuck, that looks pretty ugly. Why does that look ugly? Well, remember that frame memory 3 and 4 are normally going to be a pair. So let's see what happened here. Let's go to Engineering Setup. And remember the main video key pair assignment that we did before. You can see here on video key pair number 41 right here that frame memory 4 is the hole cutter or the key signal for frame memory 3. And if we go to the keyer by double pressing key 1 as a shortcut, it's showing us that the key source is auto select. So what you're actually seeing is you're seeing the picture of my youngest son with part of his face cut out by my older son. So let's fix that because it's really disturbing. We're going to go into the key source and we're going to change the key source to a split key. Now a split key says, forget what the auto select table has. I'm going to tell you manually what the video source is and the video fill is. So once we go into split, I'm going to hit this menu selection called Signal Select. And in this, I can come up and I can say, I want to change my fill or my source. Well, in this case, frame memory 3 is correct as my fill. My source, I don't want to be frame memory 4. Now, the good thing is we don't have to be particularly accurate with this. I'm just going to find something that has a full field of white as its key, and I'm going to say set cross point. And now the yuckiness of mixing my two kids together went away, and I have one child on the screen at one time. So I want to repeat this exact same procedure for key 2. So for key 2, again, it starts off with black. I'm going to come over here and select key 2, and I'm going to select frame memory 4. Now again, I've got some ugliness here because the signal isn't right. Let's cheat. Go over here to key 2, select split, signal select the source, scroll up to the top where I know I've got some whites, and hit set cross point. So now with my 2 keyers, I have 2 full screen images. Perfect. Lastly, let's go ahead and put the frame up on the screen. Key 4, same thing, it's all in black. Key 4, we're going to select frame memory 5 and 6. Now, let me double press key 4 to go to its menu. Now, in this case, I do want auto select because my frame memory, if I cheat over here and take a look, has a video and a key signal to make it look correct. So, first things first. Let's turn on key 1. Now, the good news is key 1 is already under key 4, so I don't have to play around with the key priority. But remember, if I wanted to, I'm going to double press the priority set button, and I could change where the key priority went. In this case, I do want key 4 over 3 over 2 over 1. Now, obviously, having my son's face underneath 2 frames isn't really cutting the mustard here. So what we need to do is we need to use the built-in resizers on keyer 1 and 2 to shrink the pictures down. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up to the trackball, and I'm going to turn on resizer control. And what you can see here is when resizer control is on, which ME am I messing with? Is it ME1 or program preset? In this case, it's ME1. And then you see here key 1 resizer or key 2 resizer. I can come down here and turn the resizer on. Now I can also do this from the menu. If I come over here and double press key 1 again as a cheat, I can come over here and see this area called processed key on the menu. If I touch it, it will take me over to the resizer. I can go in here and turn the resizer on here. And again, notice these are all linked together. When I'm doing this from the menu, it's turning the resizer on the trackball. If I do it from the trackball, it's turning it on in the menu. It doesn't matter. I have even one more place I can do it, and that's the multifunction module. I can come to the key adjust of ME1, select key 1, and go through, see what says page 1 of 3. I can go to page 2. Nope, there's no resizer here. Go to page 3, and now I can see resizer. I'm going to turn it on here. And again, same thing. All 3 places turn on at the same time. On the resizer on the multifunction module, I can shrink it down with size. I can move X. I can move Y. And I can do the same thing with the menu. I, however, prefer to use the trackball. To me, it's just a lot more intuitive. So here's what I'm going to do. Obviously, the aspect ratio of Zachary's picture is wrong for these boxes. So I'm going to do some cropping here. So I'm going to make my vertical match inside here, kind of perfect about right there. So I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to double press the key 1 resizer button on the trackball, and it's going to take me right to the resizer menu. And I'm going to select the submenu called border and crop. I'm going to turn on cropping. And what's going to happen now is I'm going to take my mouse over and I'm going to adjust the horizontal crop. Now this is going to do both sides at the same time. By the way, by selecting this area in brown up here that says crop 1 of 2, I can do the top, left, bottom, and right. But in this case, I don't need to. I can just do horizontal. Now obviously I'm off a little bit here. Now, this is what I love about using the trackball and either the touchscreen or the mouse at the same time. On the trackball, I'm going to lock the X-axis, which is left and right. And using my left hand, I'm going to move this over. And using my right hand, I'm going to adjust the mouse. So now I've saved a lot of time going back and forth. I've now cropped this picture perfectly inside this. Now I could repeat this entire procedure again for keyer 2, but somebody spent an awful lot of money on this switcher. Why not use the computing power in the switcher and let it do most of the work for us? So up here, I'm going to go into the menu, and I'm going to select the Copy Swap menu. I'm going to go to the keyer on the bottom, and ME1 key 1 is the picture of my son Zachary. Well, everything about that is exactly what I want in keyer 2, except for the position. So I'm going to copy ME1 key 1 to ME1 key 2, and I'm going to hit copy. Now, it didn't really seem to do anything. Two reasons. One, I got to turn key 2 on the control panel right here. And second, they're layered right on top of each other because it's an exact copy. So up on the trackball, I'm going to select key 2 resizer this time. My x-axis is locked because I don't want it to be moving up and down or anywhere else. And now watch what happens when I move my trackball. I had the exact duplicate picture of Zach, and now I have him on this box too. Obviously, I don't want him in both boxes, so the last thing we have to do is come up to key 2 on the delegation bus and put frame memory 4 in. Now we have completely rebuilt the effect that I showed you when we started this section. We have one more task to do. We need to save this so I can call it up again. Now earlier we talked about snapshots. So this time we're going to take the snapshot to multiple levels, so to speak. We're going to store what I saved here into a memory. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to store this into memory 10. Now, truth be told, the button here called toBox is what I showed you earlier, so we're not going to cheat and call that up again. We're going to go to number 10, which is empty. You can tell it's empty because there's no light on. So we're going to select ME1 because we want to remember everything about ME1. Now, this is going to remember the positions of the resizers. It's going to remember which keyers are turned on. It's going to remember what the background is selected, but it's not going to remember what's in the frame memories. That's something totally separate. So we're going to hit ME1 here, make sure it's turned on, and then we're going to hit this More button over here. Now, More says that there are other regions in the switcher. We have other things like User 1, User 2, User 3, and so forth. Now, I have programmed into the system before I started the video here that frame memory 3 and 4 shows up as region User 2. User 3 is frame memory 5 and 6, and User 4, which is down here, is frame memory 7 and 8. So we're using frame memory 3 and 4, feeding these. We're using frame memory 5 and 6, which are feeding the outside boxes. Okay? And we're using frame memory 7 as the background. So in addition to remembering snapshot for ME1, I also want to remember User 2, User 3, and User 4. We're going to hit Exit to get out of the More menu. And last thing we're going to do is we're going to hold down Snapshot, and we're going to hit number 10. This now stored everything you're seeing on the screen in Snapshot 10. And there you have it. It's that easy to create a double box. Just get all your pieces, put them in the proper order, and of course, make sure to save it. And let me show you a few variations on this theme. So again, we got our double box, but using the exact same techniques, I can now create a triple box. By the way, that's my daughter, Kelsey. I can create a 4 box. And now I'm going to show you one other thing that we can do. Here's another common scenario. So what I'm going to do here is let's reset a couple of things here. First of all, I'm going to clear out all of my resizers and things like that. I'm going to go into my frame memory pair, and this time I'm going to select a 1 box. And I'm going to put this over on keyer 2. And we're going to have this 1 box come up like this. And again, we're going to go back to our auto select. And I want to take a picture of my daughter here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to crop her. So I'm going to crop this like this. We're going to go on to horizontal. And I'm going to crop vertically. There we go. Now, this might be nice, but somebody might say, I really want that smaller and lower in the frame. So what I'm going to do is, since I'm using 2 resizers, I'm going to take resizer 1, make sure it's on, and resizer 2. Remember, those are attached to keyer 1 and 2. This is keyer 1. This is keyer 2. And I'm going to gang them together this time. So keyer 1 resizer and keyer 2 resizer are together. And now I'm going to shrink it down, move it over here. I can put her down in the corner. And now another really cool thing I can do is using a snapshot, I'm going to record this image. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to store this on snapshot 17. Now I'm going to take it and I'm going to move it over here and I'm going to record this on snapshot 18. Now there's some really cool attributes that you can put onto a snapshot. And to get to those, I'm going to hit this button called Edit Enable. I'm going to hit it and I'm going to turn this button on called Effects Dissolve. I'm going to exit out of the attribute menu. I'm going to recall number 17. she's going to be over there. Now when I recall 18, instead of her popping over to the left-hand side, she's going to make a nice, smooth transition. So up until now, all the box effects that I've shown you have been straight and flat. What happens if a director wants to have canted boxes? Let's take a look. All right, so what's happening here is, we're going to come up here and I have this newscaster and I have this newscaster that I want to put inside of that box. Now, this might be good for something like a conversation. Now, kind of unique to switchers at this price point, the 3000 and 6500 resizers have rotation on the X or Y axis. So what I can do now is this. I've taken both of those guys, put them in the canted boxes. But what we can do is I can come over here, and of course I have my resizer so I can resize it. Just to show you what I'm doing, key 4 is the frame over here. Key 1 is the left box, key 2 is the right box. So I can maybe make him a little bigger in the thing, or I can rotate. So here is X rotation, so I can fit it inside the box correctly in the correct aspect ratio. And the same thing with this side. I can turn her a little bit, make her look more lifelike, and again, maybe make her match the size here a little bit. And there we go. So even at a switcher at this price point, you've got canted boxes. All right, let's take a look at one more multi-box scenario. Okay, I've taken away my multi-viewer for the time being so we can see a big preset and a big program all at the same time. So a common thing here is I want to go from this shot to a double box. So I've created a very rudimentary double box. It doesn't have the fancy graphics and stuff that I had before, just so I can kind of make my point. I want to be able to preview my multi-boxes so I can set what's inside the boxes properly. Now in this case, these are backwards. I want to go from the shot here, the motorcycle, and I want the motorcycle on the left and I want the farm on the right. So I'm going to go over here to key 1 and I'm going to set this, and key 2, I'm going to put the other deck inside of it. This gives me a total chance to change my mind or to correct an error before I put it on the air. So I can go from this, cut my double box, go to a live shot, maybe even go to the live shot full, come back to the double box, and go back to the anchor. So what happens when I want to go to a 4 box? Well, remember I mentioned earlier that only key 1 and 2 on each ME have resizers, so it wouldn't be possible to do a 4 box on a single ME. However, since the 3000 has 2 MEs and downstream key 1 and 2 have resizers, it'd be very easy and we can still do a preview. So what I'm going to do is call this up. Now, again, I'm previewing ME1 right here. So we're seeing 2 of the boxes. Now let me come down here and show you this area right here called the next transition area. Right now, this is saying that I'm going to only cut the background. So I'm going to go back to my double boxes here. And when I cut the background, all it's going to switch is the A-B bus. So when I hit it, program and preview, or A and B, are going to toggle back and forth. All right, so let me go over here. What I've done is I've taken my 3rd box here and put it on downstream key 1. So if I hit just downstream key 1 here, you're going to see the box appear on preview. And you can see now, since I'm only going to be changing downstream key 1, if I hit cut, all it's going to do is put this box on top of program. Downstream key 2 is my 4th box. Same scenario. If I hit cut now, it's going to put it on program. However, I can hit multiple things. If I hit 1 and 2, you can see I now have 2 boxes. So now, what's going to happen if I preset ME1 and do background, DSK1, and 2 at the same time? I now have 4 boxes, and I can see all 4 of them and change the sources. So again, I can go to key 1, change it, key 2, change it, downstream key 1, change it, and downstream key 2, and change it. So now I really have the ability to go up and take it. So that's a great way that I can preview even a 4 box using ME1 and program preset at the same time. So let me show you one more scenario. Remember the 4 box kind of complex one with the frame on I showed you earlier? I can do the same thing here. I've got 2 boxes, and again, downstream key 1, downstream key 2, and background. If I do all 3 of them together, it doesn't look so well. But I also put my frame on downstream key 4. So if I do background, DSK1, 2, and 4 together, I can still change all my sources at will, cut it to air, and then cut back. Now let's look at a couple scenarios for something like an over-the-shoulder graphic. Okay, now one of the most common ways to do over-the-shoulder graphics is to bring something in from your graphics system. So I'm going to bring up key 3 right here on ME1. And again, this is kind of a common scenario This graphic for my kid's new puppy is coming from the graphics system, in our case the frame memory, but it could be coming from any graphics device that you have and fed live into the switcher. But let's cover another way to do it using the DME. Maybe I want to put live video into it. So I want to use a DME wipe to bring this up. So the first thing I've got to do is transfer the resizer from the keyer onto the background DME wipe. I'm going to go to Engineering Setup, and I've got to go to the switcher config page on ME1 and transfer key 1 onto the background DME wipe because I need to use the resizer as a DME wipe. Then up here, I'm going to press DME, and we can now see that I've got a DME wipe. And remember, what's on the B bus is what's going to be in the DME here, and what's on the A bus is going to be the background in this particular effect. So now, a couple other things. First of all, just make note here that underneath the fader arm is with the direction for the DME wipe. So if I do reverse, it's going to do it backwards. Notice how it starts at the top, goes back. And if I do normal, it's going to start from the back and go front. So that's one I want to use. So I'm going to come up here and I want to use this live video of the basketball game as, say, an over the shoulder. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to double press my DME wipe button and I'm going to go to Modify. Make sure the position is turned on. And again, I can use my mouse to adjust the horizontal and vertical position, but I'm going to cheat and use my menu on my trackball. So I'm going to come over here and I can quickly position this up with my trackball. Maybe make it just a little bit smaller, like that. Okay. And then I want to add a border to it. So I'm going to go over to Edge and Direction. I'm going to turn on a border, which kind of puts that blue color. I'm going to change that border a little bit. Again, since I'm in the menu mode on my trackball, the X-axis is going to respond to the first knob. So I can make the border a little bit bigger. And finally, I'm going to push the luminance thing to get my quick borders, and I'm going to turn it into red. And close this out. So to me, this looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to store this as a snapshot on the switcher. So I'm going to select Snapshot, ME1, and I'm going to hold down Snapshot and store it, say, on number 37. So every time I call that up, it's going to recall this. Now I want to bring this full screen. There's a couple ways to do this. I can hit the Auto Trans button, and it'll come full screen. No problem. But I'm also going to show you another little trick that we can use using a snapshot and attributes. I'm going to store the same exact snapshot again on another number, number 38. And when 38 is lit, which it always is as soon as you store it, I'm going to hit this button right here called Edit Enable, which is going to bring up all of the attributes that I can have stored on a snapshot. Now I'm going to turn on 3 different attributes. I'm going to turn on Auto Trans, which says that the moment I recall that snapshot, it's going to execute an Auto Trans for me, so I don't have to push the button. And I'm going to put a cross point hold on my A bus and a cross point hold on my B bus so that the switcher doesn't touch any of the sources when I execute that snapshot. I'm going to hit exit to get out of it, and now I'm going to recall 37, which brings this up, and watch what happens when I recall 38. It automatically brings the box forward for me. Okay, now let's make another set of memories for the other side of the screen. So to move this, I'm going to go and select Modify again so that my position on my menu comes back up and I can use my trackball. I'm going to bring this over on this side of the screen. Now, keeping it the same size kind of makes it go off the screen a bit. So I'm going to move my fader to make it a little bit smaller. Bring it right here. I'm going to do the exact same thing again. I'm going to store a snapshot on 34. I'm going to store another snapshot on 35, okay, because I need 2 snapshots the same. I'm going to go to Edit Enable, turn on Auto Transition so that when I recall that, it's going to bring it full. And I'm going to turn on Cross Point Hold A and Cross Point Hold B so that when I call it up, the switcher won't change my sources. Hit Exit. All right, let's watch what happens. I'm going to recall my original one we did a second ago on number 37. I'm going to hit 38, and it's going to cause it to come forward. Now I'm going to hit 34, which is going to bring it over here, and I'm going to hit 35, which will cause it to come forward. Now, what did that whole cross point hold thing really mean that we did? So I got 34 over here. What if on the fly I decided that I wanted to change what was in the box? So I went from this to this. Hitting 35 without cross point hold would automatically switch it back to the basketball game. But in this case, it leaves that cross point alone. That's what cross point hold is for. So we've seen how to do it using a traditional snapshot. Now let's take a look at it using DME wipe snapshots. Just to cheat a little bit, let's bring this back to my original position. Now up here, we've been using a snapshot. Now remember, a snapshot is going to remember everything about the ME bank. In this case, I just want it to remember the DME wipes. So let's come over here and select DME wipe snapshot. And we select ME1 because that's the DME wipe we want to remember. So we have this particular position stored. I'm going to hold down DME wipe, and I'm going to hit number 7. Okay, so we call this up. I can move the box off the screen. I recall it. Now, what happened? It didn't put my box back. Only a snapshot is going to actually remember the transition to here. A DME wipe simply remembers all the parameters of it. So I could move this thing off to the side over here, change it, recall my DME wipe, and the position will be back to normal. So what I want to do now is I'm going to use a pattern limit so that when I hit auto trans, it stops about right there. I don't want it to come all the way full screen because I don't want to use any snapshots. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the ME1 menu and select DME wipe, and I'm going to go over here and select edge direction and turn on pattern limit. So what I'm going to do is I've got to change my pattern limit here. And again, I'm going to use my menu here, bring it down so that the pattern limit comes about right there. So what happens now is as I move my fader, or even the auto trans, this is automatically going to happen. And I'm going to restore this as DME wipe because it's going to remember the pattern limit. So let's go ahead and set another one onto the other side. So we'll go to Modify, make sure Position is turned on, lock our X-axis so it's in the same place, come over here, and in this case again it's a little too big, so let's go back to Edge and Direction, Pattern Limit. Let's move it down a bit, and then we're going to do our Position again. Perfect. And we're going to store that in DME wipe number 8. So let's go to DME wipe number 1. And here it is. There's 1. And now notice it's off screen. I'm going to recall number 8, and it didn't pop it on the screen. And when I auto trans, it's going to come back perfectly.